I have a really important announcement for all future and existing members of my exclusive podcast coaching program, the Elevate Insider. Not only will you get full access to all of my episodes and exclusive supporting content that correlates with each episode, but for a limited time, I'm offering a special bonus, my top client retention strategies. This is the same exact retention strategies I've tried and tested in my commission salon and with my team. It's the reason why I've built such a loyal client base over the last 13 years. To get this exclusive bonus material, all you have to do is subscribe by either clicking the link in the show notes or visiting www.opulentbeautypro.com/insider. If you currently subscribe through Apple Podcasts, I highly recommend canceling your subscription and resubscribing to get this special offer and easier access to this program. Hello and welcome to the Elevate podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Nowakowski. I am a salon owner, educator, mindset, and leadership coach that helps salon owners go from overwhelmed and burnt out to motivated and empowered. It is my mission to help you systemize your business, generate more profit, and create a career that you are absolutely in love with. Join us every week to learn about the small shifts you can make to elevate your business regarding mindset, marketing, social media, business systems, and so much more. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Elevate podcast. On today's episode, I am so excited to chat with my amazing friend, Rachel Nixon. Rachel and I have been connected since taking an extension course together many, many years ago. And since then, Rachel has done some really incredible things in the extension industry. I have a special offer for our listeners. Rachel has written a book called The Ugly Side of Beauty, and she is offering all of our listeners 15% off of her book, and that code is opulent15. You can pre-order her book at everythinghandtied.com. I am so excited to chat with her about some amazing things that she has gone through in her career that have really molded and shaped who she is today. You can find all of Rachel's quick links for Everything Hand Tied at sacredhivesalon.com.
My name is Rachel Nixon, and I have been in the beauty industry for close to 30 years, actually longer than that, if I'm to be honest. So I started out as a model, actually. I worked for hairdressers starting at around 12, and there was a man, stylist, that had wanted me to be his model for a long time. I had worked for this woman, and, my mom was like, "Oh, this is who she works for. This is the only person she's working for." Until one day all my hair fell out from whatever thing she was doing for take pictures or whatever. And back then, it was for hair shows. We weren't a model for Instagram. This was like for bona fide hair shows. So as soon as all my hair fell, of course, my mother reaches out to this man who had wanted me to be his model. And that's where I got started in the beauty industry as his model. I find it funny that one person fried my hair off with relaxer, and this man knew nothing about color. He used to pray to the color gods in the back room. And I have always been a problem solver. So I thought that was so funny that he would pray in the back. And I would think that that's just like basic chemistry. Also back then, since I've been in the industry longer than Google's been alive, they didn't have Google, so I couldn't Google to figure out things. So as I was a model and I would sit and wait for my turn, I would literally scoop up hair off of his floor. I went to an art supply store, and that's where I learned the universal law of color in general. So the chemistry of color. Back then, you would have to go to a library, and I would literally look into encyclopedias and dictionaries and find out, what does hydrogen peroxide do? What does ammonia do? So that I had an understanding. So I basically kitchen taught myself color, and I was his colorist from the age of 16 until I got pregnant with my daughter at 20. That was my first experience with the ugly side of the beauty industry because he quickly asked me to leave once I was pregnant with my daughter. I didn't realize then that he was sick and wasn't going to be alive in the next couple of years. But he did me a solid by telling me I needed to get out of there. He also told me I needed to go back to a more multicultural community and not keep myself in one space. And he told me I needed to go to beauty college and actually get a license to do hair now that I was with child, that I couldn't do that illegally anymore. So I went to beauty college pregnant, and that's where I got started in the actual industry and doing hair legally. And have always been a colorist until then things really became fun for me.
Yeah, so that's how you and I actually met. And I have loved following your journey. You and I met through an extension company through their education, and there were 300 of us. And out of all of those 300, there are quite a few of us and you who have done incredible things. And you have just written a book, and you have your own hairline, you have your own education. There are so many things that you've accomplished in the time frame that I've known you, which is why I wanted to do this podcast today. I love watching everything that you do. Your hair that you sell is absolutely incredible. I was so excited when I saw that you wrote a book and that it was coming out. I cannot wait to read it. I want to know, what was the defining moment that made you want to write your book? I want to know, did it come from more of like a personal healing, and what was the purpose behind it?
I found this in myself that really doesn't take huge action on something until I get really pissed off. And I finally just got pissed off enough, and I had been fired from this job that I had been working literally for almost 3 years without a day off. I made it look good on Instagram, on the gram, made it look like, I was still having this amazing life. But really, I was like killing myself. And so once I got fired, first thing that came out of my spirit was, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to expose, I'm going to write about all my experiences. Like I was super angry, right? And while writing the book, I realized that this was a story that needed to be told, and that it's not just about this one company that pissed me off. It was about my experiences in the beauty industry, period. Each experience just ended up building on the next until I took a moment, stood back, and stopped being the victim in my own freaking story. I got to realize that I had been allowing people to take advantage of me instead of standing on my own 2 feet, which I had already built many awesome companies. And for some reason, I just felt like I needed to find some other community out there instead of just sitting back and allowing my community to come to me. So I have to honor almost and thank that company that fired me and put me through what I chose to be put through, to be quite honest. Because at the end of the day, I mean, I chose it. I could have gotten off of the hamster wheel anytime I wanted to. I chose to stay in the toxicity and the madness. And if I hadn't, and I hadn't been fired, I wouldn't be able to write this book that is essentially going to help everyone else that reads it stand up on their own, create their own businesses and their own brands, and know that if you build it, they will come, which that was one of my favorite movies when I was a kid, The Field of Dreams. I go back to that every single time I get this amazing idea or plan to build something. If you build it, they will come. So trust it.
There's a couple things I want to touch base on. I feel like you and I have very similar stories. We were both kind of creating something for ourselves, and then we kind of got sucked into other companies because we felt like we couldn't do it on our own, right? When I saw all the things you were doing, I saw you came out with your Everything Hand Tied hair company, and then you were doing all these great things, and then you started working with this other company. I was kind of surprised because I thought that you had created so much success already on your own. You were already so successful. What was your thought process when you decided, you know what, I'm going to put that on hold and maybe not give that as much attention? I'm going to work with this other company instead. Why did you choose to do that instead of kind of pushing through with your own company?
Well, what's interesting about that is my company and the original thought process of everything hand tied was again to create a solution to a problem. When I created everything hand tied in 2019, the only way you could get hair in your hands as a licensed cosmetologist was either having a really cool IG with thousands and thousands of followers, where one of these, and literally there was less than 10, I could count on my hands how many hand tied or wefted hair companies you could actually purchase hair from, right? So, and all of them had a process. There were so many of them that were either you had to have $5,000 to $10,000 buy-in, which how many regular hairstylists have a $5,000 to $10,000 buy-in, 6, 7 years ago, let alone today. You know what I mean? Like, let's get back to the economy today, right? So there wasn't that. And if you weren't a cool girl, you couldn't get an account with other companies. It was very exclusive. So everything hand tied started out as I didn't care who you are. As long as you had a license to do hair, please be able to buy whatever hair you wanted. I also had a really hard time with the fact that you could only buy back then, you could only buy full packs of hair. Some companies had half packs. You were very limited. As a colorist, I wanted to make sure that you had so many different options, whether you colored hair or not. I wanted you to understand what you were buying. And I wanted you to have options, and I wanted you to be able to buy one weft if that's all you needed, just one weft. So for me, I was more on the side of the product companies. And as I was, messing around with hand tied, I was also jumping around to different companies. And at that time, methodology was so huge. Independent education wasn't as big. It was like if you weren't part of this huge conglomerate, I didn't really see where my hair would really take off without me like literally pounding the pavement, right? So, funny story with why I chose to go with this larger company, and I didn't realize I was putting my company on the back burner, was because I had started with this other company, and this other company wasn't going anywhere, but it was giving me the opportunity to present myself and present my hair company in front of other stylists. This other company that I had been an educator for prior to this larger company, she had done this convention, which made all the sense in the world. Like when she was talking about it and saying how she was going to put this awesome convention on. And I wanted definitely to be a part of that. Again, there weren't many hair companies out there at the time. And so I really wanted to be that white glove luxury concierge service for hairstylists when it came to hair. During that time, this company had come out. No one had seen a flip up before or a hidden row before. And I thought, wow. And I had a feeling this is going to blow up. You know what I mean? Not that I hadn't seen a hidden row before, but I'd never seen anyone market it before. I definitely had other girlfriends who were creating their own methodologies, you included, that were on a smaller scale that were coming out with their own stuff. So what was interesting during that time, I actually signed up for that class. I signed up for your class, and I signed up for Harper Ellis with Tara. Tara was also very small then. She was just a hair company. She wasn't like doing any type of methodology training. So I signed up for all three. And what made me do was moving in with that particular brand was they were so green. So I thought at the time, that was my feeling. And they were really good at like telling me what I needed to hear. You know what I mean? Like it was almost like her story and my story were the same. I don't know if they like did a lot of research on me, but the conversations that ended up having initially were like, it's only me and my husband in this brand. It's only us, and our kids are the ones that are like weighing out beads. And so it just was so familiar. It was so relatable. I'm also was pretty naive and green in the sense that I was raised with nothing. I, did not have a silver spoon in my mouth. So I don't know what that looks like when people say they don't have anything, but they really do. You know what I mean? Like if you tell me you don't have anything and you're telling me a story of you and your husband, like doing the work, you're the only ones in this brand. Like I honestly relate it back to like being broke with an idea and just wanting to get it out there. Right. So I thought that we matched so well in those initial, first meetings with each other. I had a hair company. She had this methodology that she was putting out. Me and my husband and my best friend, who knows nothing about hair, is not a hairdresser at all, are the three people at this point in my company doing everything. So I just thought it was going to be a beautiful marriage. And little did I know that no, economically, they were not on the same page as me at all. They had millions of dollars when she started out her brand to begin with. I mean, I don't know if her husband thought it was going to be just a fun game. You know what I mean? Like, oh, this is something she wants to do. This will be fun. This is cute. And then it blew up into what it is today. Looking back on it now, I kind of feel like that's what it was. This is cute. It's a cool idea. Let's see what happens. And they had the financial means to fuck around and find out. Where my idea, I didn't have the financial means to fuck around and find out. When I started everything hand tied, I had $5,000 to my name, but there was something in my soul that told me, go out and do this. There are other hairdressers in the world that are looking for you to do something like this. Everything Hand Tied was the very first company to ever come out with a single weft that you could buy. Very first one. Now there's a ton of companies that do it. And we just say, thank you. Thank you for feeling our shine a little bit. But that's the biggest form of flattery, you know what I mean, is to imitate it. So we don't have a problem with that. We're just happy that it's more accessible to everybody. When we say we're an inclusive company, we truly mean that we are an inclusive company.
You and I both have talked about how both of our situations were very cult-like. Like, I did not realize I was in a cult until I actually got out of it and had some time for clarity. And I know you kind of feel the same too. What are some things or moments of clarity that you had that you're like, wow, this is very cult-like. This is not a healthy environment. And this is actually quite toxic.
Oh gosh, even talking about this, I feel like I get a little bit emotional about it because there was the biggest one that comes to memory that hurts my heart worse than anything. So number one, the owner of the brand was always in victim mode. Somebody was always doing something to her. Some stylist was always doing something wrong to her. We were constantly sending her flowers. And I'm just trying to do my freaking job. Okay. And it was just a lot of drama and a lot of things that were like, I could see why people were angry because you promised one thing, then they almost get to that place and then you change the rules. So like I could see where people are calling you out, talking trash or whatever. But what really got to me and what really made me realize that I guess we can call it a cult. I guess we can call it a pyramid scheme is the way I like to look at it as well, is my dad died in the middle of, all of it. And I'm literally busting my behind every single day. And not one person reached out to me and gave me their condolences. Not one person. And I was so confused and so hurt and really realized that I was like not a part of that community, only as far as what they could take from me. Right. And then I was called by one of the people on the back end or whatever that works for that company, still works for that company. And I guess I had forgot to respond to one stylist. Mind you, I had 400 stylists on my mentor sheet at one time. I was the most requested mentor. And I got back to everyone within 24 hours, whether it was a Saturday, a Sunday, a holiday, didn't matter. And I guess one of these 400 people I didn't respond to within 48 hours. And I got a message that said, if you can't handle, your students in a timely manner, let us know and we'll take care of them for you until you're ready to get back and do your job. Not again, I'm sorry your dad died. I'm sorry you're grieving. And then the next time I see this woman, she told me she didn't even know that I was that close with my father, which, okay, great. Again, I didn't know I was in a cult, much like you, until after I got out. And people literally sent me documentaries and said, you were a part of a cult. And what's hard for me, and that is the reason why that memory is so deep for me, is because, and I hope this is okay to say. If it's not, oh well, I'm going to say it anyway. But this particular group of people come from a religious background, the Mormon religion. And why this stung for me so bad about my dad is, well, I am half African American. My father was a Black man. And in the Mormon religion, up until 1976, people of color weren't even recognized as human beings. So after I left this organization, and I know that they are knee deep in that community. Now I'm sure they've said now they're no longer that religion, but knowing that these people were alive and their parents were alive, believing that people of color were not human until 1976. Well, that's not that long ago, you know? And so some things, as a woman of color married to a Black man and have children of color whom they have met, I now understand why I was never invited into the home where other people were invited in the home. It then hit me like so much deeper of how ingrained the religion is in the brand. And that's just one little example. That's just my personal, like, damn, that is so fucked up. And like, I didn't know that, you know? So then, of course, as I've literally watched and went down the rabbit hole watching all these different documentaries, I can actually have compassion for her, the brand, as well as like understanding that these things did happen. But I can also have compassion because you don't know what you don't know. So this is how they were raised. This is what they believe. They believe in multi-level marketing. And when you look at the business model of the Mormon church, and then you look at the business model of said company, it's very eerily the same. And so I was never going to get to the celestial kingdom to begin with for the simple fact that I am a woman of color. Actually, I don't wish I knew that beforehand. I'm glad I went through all this again, so that we can really share and educate and guide others to actually make a decision based off of their critical thinking opposed to their critical feeling.
Yeah.
Because I made decisions based off of my critical feelings, not off of my critical thinking.
I totally see a lot of the correlation between these religions and these companies. And I know I shared this with you, which you didn't know, that DTH is based off of Kabbalah, which essentially is also a religion. So I feel like a lot of these companies that are having like and gaining all this traction have that religious background behind everything that they do, when in reality that is not, I mean, I just don't think that is appropriate, to be honest. And I'm sorry you went through that. I had no idea that that was the case with the Mormon religion. I had no clue.
I had no clue either, girl. But in the last couple of years, you have no idea. Like the minute people knew I was no longer with that company, people I didn't even know were like, you need to watch this documentary. You need to watch this documentary. This is what happened to you. I'm here for you. And writing my book really helped me release so much. And it made me realize that I have been indoctrinated by the Mormon church since I was a kid, since I was like 6 years old and we lived in Oakland, California. You know what I mean? I didn't even realize that that has been a part of my existence since back then. Like my mom and I have talked about it. And she was like, you know, as she read my book, which is so interesting, I didn't even tell my mother, my own mother, all these things until I wrote my book. And I said, here, read this. And she was like, do you know that you've been fascinated with the Mormon community since you were a kid? And I was like, what are you talking about? And again, we lived in Oakland, California. So there's a huge temple in the hills of Oakland, and we lived on the bottom of the hill. So at nighttime, when we would drive on the freeway, you would come across this and see the Mormon church. And thought it was just the most beautiful thing. It's white, it's all lit up, it's gorgeous. Of course, I'm bougie. And I used to think Marie and Donnie Osmond lived there. And my mom laughed and she told me this story. She's like, did you know that that was number one, the Mormon church? And I said, well, I do now. And she goes, well, when you were a kid, you didn't know that. And that Donnie and Marie Osmond are Mormon. So these are the things that I came out of my mouth, not even knowing that that's what I was saying. It's just kind of wild that I ended up in a community for 3 years where I was so indoctrinated into it. And I think at the end of the day, and I think it's probably why people search and seek out religion, is probably why I was searching and seeking out a community in the hair industry, is because we don't want to be alone, and we know that there's something greater out there collectively that we want to be a part of and want to share with others. But again, it took me writing to realize that just like what I tell people and how I honestly believe about God and spirit is that that's within you. You don't have to go out there to actually find it. It's within here. And community you can also find based off of this, what energy you're bringing. So that's definitely been something that I've learned to trust, and it actually does work. So
Yeah, that's definitely something that I was looking for too, was connection. I feel like everyone wants connection, community. And you're right. So many amazing things can happen in the right environment with the right people. Growth can happen at a rapid rate. I do think that, I mean, with what you've shared, you've experienced so much growth and you literally have had so much transformation. What do you think is the hardest lesson you learned during that time, and how did it shape your next steps?
not to give everything away. Everything that I have is not for everybody to take. And I just started doing for me. Once I realized that, like, I don't have to have, $1 million backing to just get on Instagram and show what I'm doing. It really made me sit down and go, wow, you literally developed every last thing that that company does today without me sitting down in meetings every Tuesday night. Like, if I had just sat there and just listened, they would still be running around in circles and not really like know what to do next. But I literally sat in those meetings and was like, okay, well, after people are certified, they're going to want something more. What do you give them next? And not just the platform where people talk trash, but like, what do you give to them next? What's their next steps? Like, so I literally sat there and created master's program. I created a shadowing program, and shadowing came about by me having students that were terrified to do a test out by themselves. And I was like, well, I'll hop on a plane and come out there and help you and watch you and give you feedback, or you can come out here or whatever. And so that's where that even came to fruition. So I took a step back and I realized, do you realize what you built? Those are every last one of those ideas that they are now monetizing off of came out of your head. So why don't you sit down and do that for yourself? You may not have the same financial capacity that they have, but do you need that? Do you actually really think you need that? So I took like the crutches off that I thought that I had, and I just started communicating with people and letting them know that I'm an independent educator and a coach. And it's taken off.
Yeah, you're doing so good. So when you decided to write a book, what was the message that you hoped that people who read your book would take away from it?
Well, when I was writing the book, at a certain point in the book, I was like, when are we going to get to the place where I am no longer the victim in this story? So what I want people to take away from it is it's a story, right? And of course, you write a story with a lot of impact so people can feel your story, right? And so I feel like when you're reading the story, you're probably like, well, shit, what else can happen to this chick? But what I want people to take away from it is this. What happened and what I dealt with and the experiences that I went through do not define the outcome of the being that I became. I needed to go through those experiences so that I could A, write the book and B, literally take a step back and look at all of the beautiful things that I actually created and was able to build off of after that story. And after all those stories, what came out of my life is number one, I trust myself more than anything and ever, more than I ever had in my life. I know that just like spirit, God, universe, whatever you want to call it, lives within me and how I walk and what I do in this world, so do the people that'll be what my community is supposed to be and what I've been searching for. I also stopped searching and let it just be. I think that's a huge one to take away from it. And also to take away that anything is possible. You are the creator of your own reality. And you can either choose to stay in the victim mode and you can see how the universe will continue to pile up even harder lessons until you learn them, or you can choose to surrender and live with the purpose that you're intended to have and to be while you're here on this earth.
Yeah, that's something that you expressed, is that you truly found your purpose, which is so powerful and so incredible. I think so many people are searching for that. And if they would just pause and take a moment, they could find it. So what is next for you and your company? And do you have any exciting projects or anything on the horizon?
We do. So, what is next for me is continuing to do one-on-one coaching, teach conceptual education when it comes to extensions, not just conceptual, since you have an understanding of that, but we dig really deep into who you are. So, in the last couple of years, I've become a human design reader. My partner is also biorhythms certified coach. So, we've combined those two things along with extension and created a really amazing class where we really help you find you and hold that space for you to uniquely be you and to create whatever lifestyle you want through the world of extensions or building your own independent education. Because I've been in education for over 20 years, I do understand how to build education on a lot of different platforms and have it actually authentically come from you and not look like some cookie cutter community. So I'm loving the programs that I've come up with outside of everything and have been presenting and inviting people to join me in. As far as everything hand tied is concerned, we're still doing great stuff with hair. We are actually coming out with white glove services for stylists where they get to connect with me personally. I get to see what their projects are and help them make the best decisions on not just hand tied and genius wefts, but we're going to be doing custom K-tips. So we're having a whole system where you can, like I said, literally contact me and we'll create your custom K-tips out of Italian keratin and Russian hair, which is really beautiful. And we're also getting into the lace closures for mesh integration.
Yes.
I can't talk a whole lot about the education side of that, but we are doing custom orders for lace closures. Again, I believe in you as stylist and connecting with you instead of just doing something just offhand. So these things, the K-tips and the closures will all be a white glove service where you fill out a form, we sit down, we get on a call, we talk about it, and we literally customize what it is that you're looking for and looking to do.
I love that. I love the customizable aspect, and I love that it is more of a luxury service for your customers, which I think a lot of people are looking for right now.
Yeah. I believe in supporting the stylist and being that person. Like, I know there's a lot of people that are doing extensions that are literally standalone and sweet, and they don't have any support. And they're picking things blind and they don't have somebody saying, I understand what you're going through. I'm here for you. And so that's really, really important to me. That's always been a part of our company is that we care about the individual. So I believe in people over profits. Profits happen when you care about people. So we are on the people route and caring about, I'd rather have 100 stylists that contact me every single week and that I have to be on the phone for 100 hours during the week than getting 100 orders from random people I don't even have a personal connection with to do one on.
So where can people connect with you and how can they learn more about your book and your business?
Well, if you go on Instagram, I am Hand Tied Stitch Queen, and also Everything Hand Tied here is two places that you can get a hold of us. Click the link in the bio and it'll literally take you to a link tree of everything that we have on either one of those pages. You can personally DM me on Instagram. I have no problem with that. And I believe your podcasters get a special little...
They do. We have a special code, Opulent 15.
And if they purchase before first of the year, they will be part of our special collector's item bundle, which would include a candle, one of the candles that I personally made. It'll be signed by me and some little extra surprise goodies in an Everything Hand Tied box. So
nice.
You purchase before the first of the year, you get some great goodies in that box. You get a collector's edition.
Yes. So Opulent 15 is the code, and be sure to visit Rachel's website and visit her on Instagram to connect with her personally. And it was so great to have you today. And I'm excited about this episode, and I'm so excited to read your book.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to the Elevate podcast. If you loved this episode, it would mean the world to me if you would leave a review on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen. The Elevate podcast is hosted by me, Patricia Nowakowski, and is produced by Opulent Beauty Pro. To receive my free business guides, visit opulentbeautypro.com/free or click the link in the show notes. You can find me on Instagram at Opulent Beauty Pro or at Patricia_Nowakowski_OBS. If you love this show, please consider subscribing, and we will see you next week.